Well, hello, kitchen stewardship fans. Katie Kimball here. It is the first day of school. My house is quiet. It feels really strange, but what better time to jump into some learning for us, the moms out there. You know, we care so much about our kids' health and we want to go the natural way, but it's not always easy to dial in and what the right answers are because Dr. Google has a lot of answers. So we don't want to talk to Dr. Google today. Today we're going to talk to Dr. Lauren Jefferis, and she's from SteadyMD, which is a concierge medicine online. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that might work, having a doctor online. But for today, we just get to ask her anything. So my team and I have been collecting like crazy good questions. I love our kitchen stewardship audience. We are so educated. We're so curious. We love our kids so fiercely. So like there's too many questions for the hour, but Dr. Lauren's going to talk as fast as she can. So thank you so much for being here, Dr. Lauren.
Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, let's start by just a little introduction to you. Like I know you have sort of a dual background as a traditional pediatrician and a functional medicine trained. So, you know, catch us up on who you are. And then we'll talk a little bit about how functional medicine is different than traditional like MD medicine.
Yeah, definitely. So, yeah, I have I'm kind of hovering between two worlds and definitely heading more towards the functional medicine world as I get further into my career. But I had a very traditional training as a pediatrician and internist, so doing general practice. And I've been doing that for the last 18 years. And actually, about 2 years ago, I had some health issues of my own where I looked like I was developing an autoimmune disorder. And that definitely kind of woke me up to sort of the limitations of you know, the traditional medical system. Started doing some research on my own, and I was able to basically successfully reverse that autoimmune disease with lifestyle. So basically diet and healthy lifestyle. So that definitely blew my mind. That wasn't anything that was part of my traditional training and just got me really interested. And yeah, I decided to pursue that further and basically start a career in functional medicine. So what I think is pretty cool is that I do have that background where I can recognize, you know, there is a time and a place for traditional medicine. Certainly, you know, it can save lives in the right setting, but more often than not, I think we jump to that. So I guess that kind of segues into what is functional medicine. You may have heard integrative medicine or functional medicine. Basically, what we're trying to do is get to the root cause of what's going on instead of just cover up symptoms. So obviously, many people have had the experience where they go into the doctor, tell them, you know, what symptom you're having, and you get a prescription to suppress that symptom. That works in the short term, but it's not a good long-term solution. So we're always going to try to get to the root of what's going on and have it be more of a lifestyle-based approach. Like I said, there can be a time and a place for, you know, medications and things like that. If I had a serious illness, I might go to that, but I'm always going to try lifestyle first. Diet, exercise, sleep, stress reduction, all those things. And yeah. I think the other main thing that's different about functional medicine is just we're trying to optimize health and prevent disease. And when we look at lab values, especially, it might be something a little bit different that, you know, the normal labs at your doctor's office are based on like a population, but our population isn't normal. So what we're looking more is for optimal lab values and trying to prevent things before they turn into problems. So.
Yeah, I had that experience like maybe 2 years ago now, where my numbers are always really good. I'm really healthy at the traditional doctor. And then I had some, you know, same blood work. It's just the functional ranges are different. Sometimes they're smaller or bigger or shifted. Exactly. And like, I had all this stuff going on. I was like, hey, I don't know if I like this scale. But gosh, I love the way you said that. Like the ranges for traditional medicine, like lab work, is based on what the population is. But our population is sick. We're not normal. And that's so true and just really hits home. And again, when we talk about root cause, like people aren't getting sick because we are not taking some prescription or something. It's not like we missed taking that drug and so now we're sick, so we have to take the drug to fix it. We're sick because of something that has happened to us in our life, whether it's, like you said, diet, lifestyle, sleep, stress, so much going on. So why not actually fix it instead of fixing the manifestation of the problem? So good. Love functional medicine. So your original background was a pediatrician. As a functional doctor, you work with adults. So we get to kind of blend that today. We talk, especially over at Kids Cook Real Food, where I teach kids to cook, we talk a lot about kids' diets and how important it is for them to start off right, because I think that's the root cause. I mean, if we look at the kids today, like you go, okay, they're eating ABC. In 20 or 30 years, they're probably going to have XYZ because of what they're eating. So what do you say, just kind of like blanket ideas for parents to keep in mind when they think about starting their kids off right with diet?
Yeah, so I mean, you totally hit the nail on the head. I think, these things are on a spectrum and they take time to develop. And when you have bad habits that start at an early age, it just, we're seeing it more and more. I'm seeing, in my career, I've seen this explosion of diabetes, type 2 diabetes in kids, which we never saw when I started, things like that. But yeah, so I think your audience especially knows the value of real food, whole food, trying to stay away from processed food. I mean, obviously it's easier said than done sometimes, especially when you go to birthday parties and things like that. But I think the earlier you can start kids on real food, the more they just think that's normal. And then they don't want the junk food because it doesn't, it's not as palatable when they've been. So I think starting early is really, really key.
Definitely. So for you, it's pretty simple dichotomy: packages over here and whole foods over here.
Yeah, I've read something about if a food can sit on a shelf for a year and not decompose, then it's not real food. So obviously things at the grocery store, you have to actually go get fruits and vegetables and things that are gonna break down. That's the healthiest stuff for your body. And I think I'm probably preaching to the choir as far as your audience. I think everyone knows that, but I think there are some little tips that maybe people I think maybe not everyone knows about the veggie oils. Veggie oil sounds like it's healthy, right? Because it's from vegetables, but it's actually one of the worst things that I've seen can cause problems. Seeing, liver inflammation in kids and things like that is those hydrogenated oils. So the peanut oil, the soy oil, any kind of canola oil is definitely something to stay away from.
Yeah, and if you start reading labels, that stuff is everywhere, especially soybean and corn, cottonseed, all that stuff. Yeah. It's not natural. So just to flip side, healthy fats, quick list.
I'm sorry.
What's your quick list of healthy fats so we know what to look for?
Oh, so coconut oil. I love avocados and avocado oil. Any kind of grass-fed or organic ghee or butter is fine. Eggs is a really great source of pastured eggs, a great source of healthy fats. And that, I mean, we try not to. Obviously, there's different foods, different diets for different people, and there's no one right diet. But I think for kids, about 30% of healthy fats is about where you want to be to make sure they're getting enough fat, because that's really important. It's they're still growing and developing all their nerves and all the things that fat's so important. So it is important. I think we've got on this low-fat craze the last 10 or 15 years that we're now realizing is not healthy. As long as they're healthy fats that kids are getting and not those, hydrogenated and the saturated fats, then these are all good things to help them grow and develop healthy.
Exactly. I do think we're shifting back in the right direction. Like people are much more wider audiences embracing fat, which is awesome. I was walking through my kitchen as you were talking, and I thought, oh, extra virgin olive oil, pastured tallow, pastured lard are on there. Probably we probably eat too many organic tortilla chips with corn oil, but if that's the one place where we're being inflamed, hopefully our bodies can, bounce back from that. So we know, especially in functional medicine. Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. I was gonna say, we're never going to be 100% perfect, and I think we have to give ourselves a little bit of credit, and little things sneak in here and there. But if 80% of your diet is whole foods and real food.
Absolutely. So I know we talk a lot about, these inflammatory oils. One of the places that it can disrupt function, disrupt optimal health is in the gut. And that's a huge topic in functional health. We've talked about it a lot, but I just want to touch on it a little because we had definitely had a couple questions come in about like gut health, allergies and stuff like that. So we'll kind of start with diet. So as far as if you think your child, especially, because again, we're kind of all parents here, has leaky gut, it's already compromised, especially if an allergy has been discovered, what are some ways or strategies to heal that leaky gut?
Well, I think the biggest thing, which kind of maybe goes without saying, is to get the things that are causing the inflammation out of the diet. So Someone had written in a question about, do we need whole grains? Do we need dairy? Are we going to be lacking in nutrition if we remove those things? And a quick and easy answer is no. There's plenty other ways to get dairy being one of and gluten being, you know, two of the most allergenic things that I see. There's plenty of ways to get enough calcium in the diet. Things like kale, beans, you know, lentils all have lots of calcium. You know, as far as like the protein or the, you know, the grains, you know, it's, you know, vitamin D fortified, but there's lots of other ways to get your nutrients and your fiber than, you know, than bread and pasta and things like that. So I would, you know, go ahead and say that you don't need those things. And one of the best ways you can kind of heal a leaky gut is removing the allergens. The thing that's a little bit tricky is that, you know, every kid's different. So we can't just say, take X, Y, Z out of your diet. It really depends on the kid and you know, what they're allergic to. The best way to do that, honestly, I mean, there's tons of different testing out there, and they're all pretty, all of them have, you know, some problems with them. The best thing and sort of the gold standard is just an elimination diet. So take all the allergens out for, eat a very, you know, whole food, kind of Whole30 type diet for 30 days, and then add things back in systematically and see what kind of symptoms the kids get. And that's one of the best ways to kind of help repair that leaky gut or the damage that's happening in the you know, in that gut from the allergens.
Absolutely. And this particular mom, she herself is gluten and dairy free. So she's like, but if my kids eat mostly gluten and dairy free, like, are they going to be deprived? So it was an excellent question and an excellent answer. You know, I like that the answer is just no. A lot of people talk about probiotics. Do you have probiotic recommendations, and is that gut healthy?
Yeah. So I think there's so much we're learning about probiotics, and I feel like, you know, every month there's more stuff that's coming out that we're learning. I think the most recent you know, that I've seen from the experts on this is that really it helps while you're taking it. It doesn't repopulate your gut with healthy bacteria, but that's okay. If you're taking it, then it's helping to kind of keep that balance of good and bad bacteria. I think initially we thought maybe it was going to repopulate our guts and have all just healthy bacteria, and that doesn't seem to be that's not a reason not to take it, because if you it's kind of a reason to keep taking it. Actually, it's only really working as you're taking it. There's so many benefits to probiotics, and how we're just learning more and more every day how our microbiome and all the bacteria in our gut, how important they are to, you know, immune function and you know, pretty much every disease, affected by just having a healthy microbiome in your gut.
Right. Absolutely. I think that's new information for me. You're talking, I'm like, oh wait, I thought we still thought that it repopulated, you know, that we could populate. Cause yeah, there are definitely people out there saying like, why are you taking probiotics all the time? Like either your gut's fine or it's not, you know, after you take them for a while. So they only work like in the moment. They don't become your own colonization. Isn't that wild? Correct. Goodness gracious. Do you have any commentary on like soil-based versus lactobacillus, or, you know, like different types of probiotics, and should we be switching these up often?
Yeah, so I just went to a conference last weekend, and this was kind of a hot topic, and the experts on this actually say it's good to just rotate them. The soil-based tend to be the most hardy, because, you know, the acid in our stomach does kill the probiotics. The soil-based ones tend to be a little bit hardier and tend to make it a little bit further down into your colon. But for the most part, I think we're getting closer to like individualized medicine in this sense, where we're going to be able to tell one day this is the probiotic that you need, or this is the one that you need. But right now we're not quite there yet. So just rotating them actually seems to be the best as far as getting a good variety.
Okay, that's excellent to hear. We have a number of brands in our cupboard. There's always like the ye old graveyard of supplements. So we've got a whole bunch in there. And then,
rotate them up.
Yeah, we have readers and people from all over the country, and some have an easy time finding a functional practitioner. Some have a really difficult time finding one. And so we had a couple of questions come in about like, how do we know who to trust? Like, are there certifications that we should look for? You know, like MD is easy, but once you start to go off like the beaten path, how do we know? And then let me see, there was one in Abilene, Texas. And then just how can we filter through research maybe on our own if we don't have a trusted practitioner to work with? A lot of big weight there. Sorry. Your turn.
No, it's a great question. It's actually really tricky. Again, this field's evolving, and I think a good place to start is the IFM, which is the Institute for Functional Medicine. They have a on their website ifm.org. They have a provider, like find a provider in your area, and someone that's been trained through them. Not everyone goes through that training. It's actually quite expensive. So a lot of people do other types of training. I personally trained through the Chris Kresser Institute. A lot of your viewers might be familiar with him. He's pretty big name in functional medicine. And he also has a find a provider on his website that you can find someone in the area. But I mean, it is, again, as an evolving field, there's lots of different people that are doing it, whether it be, chiropractors or naturopaths or dentists or, acupuncturists and I think that's not as important. What's more important is just finding someone that you're aligned with, and that obviously you can get some personal recommendations or do a little research online. There is a board certification, but again, being a pretty new specialty, not too many people are going that route right now. I think it'll evolve, but I think just kind of using your resources and going maybe with people that you trust, whether it's like a blogger or someone, and someone that they maybe have an experience with. So
sure.
City. I think that's for a City MD. We have some partnerships of people that are in the industry that are partnering with us, and they're patients of ours. So that's one way that I think we're able to partner with people and kind of get a reputation out there. But yeah, it's a little bit tricky, honestly, because there isn't like any set standard.
And then, so if someone lives in, there's food deserts, but I'm sure there are many functional medicine deserts. Is SteadyMD and online medicine a good option for someone who just can't find someone nearby?
Yeah, I think it's a great option. It's everything's online, and there's so many things that you could do in person you can do online, and it's obviously a lot more convenient and fast. You have again, I was talking about making sure to find someone that you're aligned with, and I think one thing about SteadyMD that's what I've found to be so wonderful about it is you get paired up with a doctor. So you take a quiz and you get paired up with someone that kind of, is aligned with your goals and what you believe. And in my short time there, I've noticed just a huge difference in my, 18 years of my traditional practice versus, 6 months of this. Is just being aligned with my patients makes so much difference for myself as a provider, and also for the patients, just getting results and making progress. I think it just makes so much. It's so important to be aligned. I think I really underestimated that until I was actually in a situation where my patients and I are kind of on the same page about things.
Yeah, that's so powerful. And then just to be clear for my readers, SteadyMD is not all functional medicine practitioners, but there are some. And so what's cool about that is I've found whenever I go to like an off-grid practitioner, you pay every appointment, and after a couple, 3-digit bills, you go like 3 digits per appointment, you're going, do I really need to go back again? I don't know. Like, it's painful. Most insurance, I don't know if any insurances cover a functional medicine. Really? They just want you to go to their MD and in their network and everything. And so even if you have insurance, SteadyMD is still, because it's a subscription, just a monthly, and I think it's under $200 a month for a person, and you get as much FaceTime as you need, literally FaceTime, because it's online. With your functional practitioner. And so I just think that could really help someone get all the way from A to Z in their healing, rather than kind of drifting off partway through because life gets busy. They don't want to make appointments. They don't want to travel. They don't want to pay the fees. And maybe, I'm just not a finisher. Like, that's one of my personality weaknesses, but I know there are others out there like me. And so that's kind of where SteadyMD.
Yeah. I would say the majority of my patients have been in that situation. They have seen functional medicine practitioners, so it took 6 months to get a follow-up appointment, or they, couldn't afford it. And we can kind of pick up where they left off, which is great. It's actually just for one person adult, it's $100 a month, and you basically have unlimited access. So basically you can text your doctor anytime. So, and I have to say on my end, that's been really rewarding as well. Working in a traditional practice, it's really hard to have that one-on-one communication so short. So this is basically, we have the time, and it's just it's really helpful for the therapeutic relationship to basically have that direct interaction with each other. And I think it's, you have a quick question, like it's perfect we have a family plan as well. And I always tell people one of my favorite things is just reassure parents that their kids are fine. And they'll send me a picture like, hey, my kid has this, this rash? Is anything I need to worry about? Do I need to go into urgent care? And just to have that, like, basically, doctor in your back pocket that you can just text and say, hey, like, do I need to worry about this? And just to be able to reassure people and keep them out of the emergency room and, not have to sit in a waiting room full of sick kids and things like that it's been really awesome.
Yes, tons of benefits. So we are 20 minutes into the hour, 1/3 in, 2/3 left. So just to give listeners a little perspective on where we're going, we're going to talk about sleep and anxiety. We're going to talk about puberty and hormones, especially for girls. We had like 3 questions about that. So it's kind of a big hot topic. And then a little bit about supporting the immune system, natural antibiotic options you can use at home, and some like skin as root cause topics. I know Janine is here live and she has a daughter with persistent canker sores, so we'll make sure that we get to that one. But Amy has a really related question, and I'm actually curious too. What's the difference between functional medicine and naturopathic or naturopathic doctors? I have no idea. I hope you know.
Yeah, so I don't know a ton about naturopathic, but I know that, basically functional medicine, again, we're trying to get to the root cause. Naturopathic are really trying to use natural causes for or natural treatments for things. Mm-hmm. It's not necessarily getting to the root cause of what's going on, but treating everything naturally. I hope that's like a good generalization. I don't know if there's any naturopaths listening. They might be able to correct me, but I think they're very similar. I think just as far as the training, my understanding is that naturopaths really can't diagnose people. They can really just make recommendations about natural things that might heal certain things, but they can't actually diagnose, is my understanding. So
okay, sure, that makes sense.
I would say they're pretty similar though.
Yep, totally makes sense. So we'll just wrap up on diet real quick, and then we had so many questions come in that were really, really specific, and so just to let readers know, like, we can't answer every super specific question. First of all, because Dr. Lauren isn't your doctor, so she can't give personalized medical advice. But also because we want to make sure that everyone listening is getting benefits all the time. So we're kind of stick to big topics, but I hope that you can see some of your little questions inside the big topics that we chose. So when it comes to diet, I think probably the last 3-ish topics are, what do we do about obesity, especially if one of our children is higher on the BMI range, and we know obesity is a huge problem in general in the American population. So there are, strategies for that. And then as far as special diets, Whole30, GAPS, vitamin A detox, how do you know if your child might need one of those? And then Kimberly asks about how to detox kids in the overprocessed world. So, again, if that's outside your expertise, that's okay. But I thought they were really good questions.
Yeah. So, I think obviously one of the key things for obesity is just, overweight kids is just, again, trying to be preventative about it. I don't need to tell your listeners that, the internet and screen time and all that stuff is a huge thing that plays into it. That's just really something that, as a mom myself, I know it's hard to combat. I think just keeping kids active, keeping them, again, real foods, healthy foods from an early age and preventing obesity is going to be the best thing. Obviously, that's, not always the case. Sometimes we're faced with kids that do have weight problems. Again, I would urge people to kind of see their pediatrician, get to the root cause of what's going on. Is it a calories issue? Is there, something else going on that might be more, a thyroid issue, things like that, getting checked out for other things. As far as, diets, I don't think there's one, again, not one, healthy foods, real foods, exercise, and trying to balance things. Obviously, I think cutting down on the carbohydrates, like a carbohydrate heavy diet is going to be good for most kids that are obese. And we obviously want to make sure they're getting complex carbs and enough, to fuel their activity and stuff. But I think most kids are probably eating too many carbohydrates.
Gotcha.
And then as far as the specific diets, I think you'd probably have to, for individual counseling, see a doctor. And even,
right.
there are like non-functional medicine pediatricians that can definitely help you with this. It doesn't necessarily have to be a functional medicine doctor. They just might have a little bit more familiarity with the Whole30 and things like that.
Sure. And is it fair to say, like, I feel like parents have to be detectives a lot when it comes to food in their kids. So it feels like, okay, symptoms, and then like food reactions, if you can, like eliminate and watch what happens when you put it back in, and then some testing to see, like you mentioned, thyroid, that can be a huge impact on weight. And like that,
Absolutely.
A plus B plus C equals a potential root cause. And that is what dictates the diet you would need to be on.
Yeah, and that's where I come back to the elimination diet. So I'll use myself as an example. I'm gluten intolerant. I had no idea for years and years that I was gluten intolerant because your body kind of gets tired of the symptoms and sort of down regulates it over time. So I wasn't, I didn't get sick every time I ate gluten. I did that Whole30, the elimination diet, and then added it back in. And sure enough, it was causing major symptoms that I had no idea of. So I think I would caution that the foods may not always trigger symptoms until you do kind of get everything, and that kind of goes along with detox. So you kind of detox the system, get everything out, and then add it back in and see what happens. And that's one of the most, useful things that you can do to see what is actually causing the problem. Sometimes it's not always what you think.
Yeah, that's really. What about allergy testing?
Yeah, so if people have had allergy testing, a lot of times it'll come up with like 50 foods that you're allergic to, which obviously isn't feasible for most people. That can be just a sign of leaky gut and that gut inflammation. And as you heal the gut with the different methods that you alluded to in the past on our show, bone broth and fermented foods, and again taking out the allergens, that's gonna help everything heal. And then usually those food allergies, they're quote unquote allergies, but I think they're just basically signs of leaky gut, and they can get better over time.
Mm-hmm.
The good news is you're not destined for life to have these 50 foods that you can't eat.
Right, because the gut can heal.
Absolutely.
And the body can heal. So when it comes to root cause, I mean, we hear a lot of skin issues, like the questions that came in. We heard a lot of skin issues, constipation, behavior issues. Janine, who's on live, her daughter has like crazy canker sore issues. She's only 8 years old and also struggling with constipation. Mm-hmm. And so do we look at those things and go, oh, like a canker sore needs this? That's more like traditional medicine. Or would it be like, what is the body trying to say through some of these signs and symptoms?
Yeah, so I mean, a lot of times it can be a lot of different things that could be causing canker sores. Could be viruses. I think it's just a sign that the immune system's not functioning the way it should. It's sort of over functioning. So it's our immune system is so amazing. It's like designed to fight things off, and sometimes it kind of goes in overdrive and kind of overdoes it sometimes. And so I would kind of put that in the category of immune support. So different things you can do to support the immune system. So vitamin C is one that we think about a lot. So citrus, but not just citrus, but like red bell peppers has a ton of vitamin C, spinach, all those antioxidant foods that are high in, they're nutrient dense. Broccoli, one of your readers mentioned garlic is for ages been very immune boosting. Ginger can decrease inflammation. So there's just a lot of different things, again, in a whole food diet that are going to help boost the immune system. Zinc is another thing to help fight off infections and things like that. So,
right. And zinc is very high in oysters, which not a lot of people eat. But that's where you can have a blood test. And if you're low, nothing wrong with supplementation, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So that was one thing I wanted to make sure. I think, you go to a traditional pediatrician, they might screen you for anemia is kind of a standard thing, but pretty much that's it. They're probably not going to screen for vitamin D, which is pretty common, vitamin D deficiency, which is pretty common. Mm-hmm. They're not going to screen for iron deficiency, which is pretty common, especially if you have a picky eater. And, if you wait till anemia pops up on that, finger stick, you get the hemoglobin and it's low, at that point, you're way behind the 8 ball. So you can ask your pediatrician for some labs, looking at iron markers, things like that would catch iron deficiency early before it would turn into, actually anemia. So
okay.
ask your pediatrician for some specific labs if there's something that, that you're concerned about, or you just want to make sure that they're getting enough.
Great. So let's break that down. I love that progression of iron deficiency to, I forgot what we said in the middle, and then anemia, because
yeah,
that's exactly the difference between functional medicine and traditional medicine. Traditional medicine is going to wait until you are diseased, until you're very sick, and then it's very difficult to unwind all of that and get back to optimal health. Whereas functional medicine is like, okay, if this is optimal health and you're here, like, let's fix it. Why not get you to perfectly optimal health if we can do that? And then we don't get you all the way over here to disease. So super explanation there. We want to watch for the little things before they become massive. And then as far as the canker source, so you're saying root cause there, we want to look at the immune system. We want to support the immune system in a variety of ways. And this kind of segues into another really interesting question. Someone said, well, what if my kid gets measles or chickenpox or some of these like old-fashioned diseases that no one gets anymore? So I don't know how to help support my child through this back to health. And you said it's all about boosting the immune system.
Yeah, I'm helping your body do what it was meant to do. And there's obviously lots of ways to do that with the foods we kind of already talked about. Obviously lots of fluids, lots of rest, more rest than you actually think necessary is always going to be good when you're trying to fight off something and help your body fight. This is what the immune system was designed to do. Sort of, when kids have fevers, one of your readers said, talked about anxiety and being like how to kind of chill out when their kids are sick. And what I would just say is that I always tell my moms that, or my parents, that fevers, you don't have to worry about fevers. It's basically your body doing what it was designed to do. It doesn't feel great as a kid. That's why we treat it sometimes, but it's not dangerous and it's not something to be afraid of. And the same thing with, when your body's fighting off, whether it's, measles or chickenpox or whatever it hasn't seen, it's totally designed. I mean, our immune system is absolutely amazing. There's, hundreds of thousands of different things that you can get exposed to in any given day, and your body basically has the tools to fight off. We're just trying to support our bodies in doing that. So hydration and sleep, rest, and like the vitamin C and things like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So supporting, getting our body to a point where our body can handle some of the stuff that's thrown at it, and maybe not worrying so much about little things. That was another question that came in, basically like, how can moms not stress out about kids' health? Because it's so stressful. Like, we don't want to see our kids in pain. I mean, this feels a little selfish, but we don't want our whole schedule to be disrupted either. And sometimes some of us moms go like, oh my gosh, if this is happening, what if like they get cancer? Right? Like we just like overthink things. So I thought it was a really good question about like, how can an anxious mom kind of stress less about their child's health? Chill out.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And is that just the answer? It's just like, tell yourself to trust your kid's body and don't worry too much?
No, I mean, obviously there's things that can progress into more serious things. So that's where you want to have a good, either a pediatrician or a practitioner or someone that you can, at like SteadyMD, you can text one of the doctors online and say, should I be worried about this? Like there definitely are times to worry. I would say probably more often than not, we don't need to worry, but that's why you want to, partner with someone that is trained to know when to worry and when not to worry. Because I think as moms, we just all tend to worry. So it's good, to have somebody that you trust, that, is accessible to you, that can tell you when to worry and when not to worry. But for the most part, I think, with mild colds and illnesses and stuff, just, I think, again, your instinct as a mom, when your kid's really not doing well, right?
Right, so it's true.
You can kind of trust that instinct, but then have that, that partnership to have that reassurance that, you're on the right track.
Yeah, that having a trusted professional in your life makes a huge difference. And we've really, probably 4 or 5 different pediatricians in my 14 years of parenting. And there's just a sense of peace, and they've all been traditional, but they understand where I'm coming from. And so I do trust them to say, okay, like, this is what I would tell a normal person. This is what I'm going to tell you, Katie. And I love that. And so I can almost look back and feel the times when I didn't have a trusted pediatrician to call and someone would get sick, and I'd go, what do I do? Like, I don't know what to do. So right now we're in a really great place with a direct primary care, and it's a Christian practice, and I love our pediatrician. So it's so nice. I mean, I know I can like email her or call the after hours or whatever. So really nice to have someone on your team. That's a great anxiety reducer. Still on the topic of anxiety, we have a lot of kids. I mean, I want to say 1/3 of our teens are depressed or anxious these days is the terrifying statistic. And we're seeing anxiety lower and lower and lower and lower in grade and age. We've got kindergarten teachers reporting severe anxiety in kids, like test anxiety is going crazy. And we had a specific question from a mom about her son who can't fall asleep because he's thinking about school or whatever, and he's anxious that he can't fall asleep, and then he really can't fall asleep. So any anxiety and sleep tips, we are all listening.
Yeah, so that's a tricky one, I think, again, because there's so many different root causes of the anxiety, and, you know, it could boil down to nutrient deficiencies, and we definitely know that bad diets are linked to things like that, and being able to take some, you know, targeted foods out of the diet have helped with that. But as far as, you know, sleep, I think stress reduction is huge. And then kind of back to that whole screen time and our internet and, you know, phone addiction. I don't, you know, so many kids are looking at their screens late at night. That artificial light that basically stimulates your retina, it basically suppresses your melatonin, which is our natural hormone that that basically tells your body to go to sleep. So you can obviously take melatonin, but the better thing, again, getting to the root cause of why kids can't sleep or why they're feeling anxious is, I don't know if your listeners have seen the blue blockers, but they actually, main things that I recommend to my patients that have trouble sleeping, and almost uniformly they tell me it made a huge difference. So anytime after dark, our bodies are not meant to be stimulated by the light, but we have all this artificial light, and especially the light from the screens is especially stimulating, even more so than the lights in the house. So after dark, if you're going to be near a computer or on the tablet or that kind of thing, I have my patients wear these blue blocker glasses. They're like the orange tinted ones, and it tends to really help kids wind down. I think, again, pointing to stress relief, just meditation, deep breathing, whatever kind of practice you can kind of help your kids do to kind of take a step back. And, you know, box breathing is a kind of a popular one. If you've heard of that, you basically like breathe in, draw a box, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, and just like kind of just helps kids slow down and take a break and, you know, just kind of try to deal with their anxiety in other ways. And then obviously if that's not working, you try different, you know, more natural things like, you know, you know, teas and things like that. Like, I think there's a lot of different things, different ways you can go, but again, trying to get to the root of where some kind of anxiety, like stress at school that's not being dealt with or that kind of thing. So.
I love that there's two ways to look at it. So if you have anxiety, you can do some things to help reduce the anxiety and fall asleep, like the blue blocker glasses. And by the way, listeners, I just put some links in the comments for where I talk about the blue blocker glasses and like sleep helps. But then it's all about that root cause. Like, who's ever thought, oh, my kid's having trouble falling asleep. Perhaps they're deficient in a mineral, or perhaps they have an undiagnosed food sensitivity and it's literally causing them to not be able to fall asleep. Like, totally possible.
I mean, sugar, you know, there's, you know, they're eating high sugar foods late at night, and, you know, chocolate obviously can keep kids from sleeping. So yeah, there's so many different things it could be, but I think if you're kind of trying to be, like you said, you have to kind of be your own detective sometimes and be an advocate for your kids and kind of figure out, you know, what's going on. And then if you're not getting anywhere, reaching out to get someone that can help.
Absolutely. Thank you. We had another mom whose child has such food anxiety that, like, of course, she's worried about his weight and he's worried about eating. And yeah, he's so nervous about eating that he'll choke or that, you know, it'll make his tummy hurt or whatever. Is that kind of the same strategies would you recommend for that? Or is there anything different when it comes to actually being anxious about eating food?
I would say that's probably different, something different, and definitely something that would, you know, I haven't checked out for. There could be some kind of root cause of, is there something going on, you know, in his throat? Does he have trouble swallowing, and that's why he's afraid of choking? And I would say that's not typical for kids to be that afraid to eat. I mean, obviously pickiness is pretty common, but I wouldn't say food anxiety is common. So I would definitely probably have that kiddo checked out to see if there's something going on medically that would be causing that.
Sure. Yeah. In this particular one, they're already having thyroid tests and blood tests. Although, like I would say to this mom, you're in the traditional medicine getting those ranges, which might not be normal. And so it would be really interesting to just take those same blood tests and run them by a functional practitioner and have the functional ranges run on thyroid. Because again, just myself, I have perfect blood labs, amazing, like super low triglycerides. Like the doctor always like, this is amazing. And then the functional doc goes, oh, actually like low triglycerides and high HDL mean, I can't remember what it is, but it's like some autoimmune disease, you know, and then coordinated with this thyroid number, which is they all in range traditional. And I'm like, oh no. So not that fun, but yeah, I don't want to wait until I'm like so fatigued I'm laying on the couch and then have to take, you know, thyroid medicine the rest of my life. So much better to figure out your root causes in a systematic way with someone you trust. Let's see what else we got here. There's so many good questions. All right, let's go to skin rashes because we've got a couple parents. Karen wanted to know about mastocytosis, like an acne like rashes and hives. She's got grandchildren with all these going on. And then David has 2 daughters with eczema and just like super, super rough skin, always dry and itchy. The doctors are saying, oh, like it can't be allergies, which is so, I mean, I'm so sarcastic, but I've heard that too from our own doctors. And then it was for one of my kids. So what would you have to say about all that?
Yeah, I would definitely say that's not part of the tradition, like the traditional training is kind of poo-poos that stuff. And I can tell you again, I feel like a lot of the things I've had personally, I've had maybe so I can help my patients, but I had horrible eczema, you know, for years. And when I gave up gluten, it went away. So I can tell you personally, my N of 1, that, you know, it is inflammatory for a lot of people. And I've seen that with my patients as well. It's not just me, but it's not something that I think a traditional doctor would say, well, maybe give up dairy and gluten and see what happens. And it's only a month. You can live without dairy or gluten. So I think, again, the highly allergenic foods tend to be related to atopy, or, you know, atopy is basically asthma, allergies, and the eczema, the skin rashes. They kind of all go hand in hand. Another thing as far as allergies, sometimes a high histamine diet, and you can, you know, look that up and see the high histamine foods. They can definitely play into kids that are having, you know, hives for no reason, or these kind of itchy rashes. And that can, you know, some modifications in the histamine in your foods can help with that. And then acne kind of plays into we had a lot of questions about the acne and puberty and things like that. And acne multifactorial. And, you know, when I was a kid, they said, don't eat greasy foods. That's what causes acne. And we know now that's not true, but there are so many foods that tend to cause your body to make more oil. So any kind of foods that spike your insulin. So, you know, all those, you know, pasta, rice, bread, sugar, all those things can really spike your insulin levels and make you make your body make more oil, and that clogs your pores, and that causes acne. Dairy and saturated fats and trans fats can oil production. And then again, a lot of acne is inflammatory. So trying an elimination diet, that's where probiotics and fermented food come in. Like plant-based foods that are high antioxidant foods can help with hormonal acne if it's kind of related to puberty or things like that. And then sometimes a food diary can help. And it's pretty old school, but just kind of trying to keep track of maybe what's triggering things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think having that histamine idea could be revolutionary for people, because I think we're used to looking for threads of food groups, right? Dairy, gluten, carbohydrates, or whatever. But the thread of histamine, high histamine foods, and you got to just Google this, but it's anything from like leftovers that are, you know, more than a day or two old, increase in histamine, right. And like blueberries. Like it's a super kind of feels like a random collection of foods. So if you didn't know what a right. high histamine diet looked like, you'd have no idea. But if you start looking at those and you go, oh my gosh, I eat those all the time. Or, you know, wow, this food diary really does show that it's that collection. So it's all about educating ourselves, right? To even know what kinds of categories of foods could be. I know one of my writers, Mary Vogt, has recently discovered that all her kids, her family was like super high in vitamin A. and they had to do a vitamin A detox diet. It's revolutionized their health. But I mean, she was a detective working for years on figuring out all the layers of her kids' food sensitivities and issues with that. Since you mentioned acne and puberty, I said we had at least 3 moms writing in about, oh my goodness, what do we do with puberty symptoms for our young daughters as they're starting to go through? Are there specific nutrients that we can kind of pump up to go through those changes as smoothly as possible? And then I think Kimberly probably speaks for all of us. How can we balance our female hormones in a healthy way as we age? Because, man, men are just like this kind of fairly flat line of day to day, and women are all over the place. So what do we do?
Yeah, so this is a pretty big topic, but I think, again, with our general theme of trying to catch things before they become a problem, I saw an article recently that talked about having less saturated fat when girls are preteens before they go through puberty actually can help levels by up to 50%, so their estrogen and progesterone levels, and that actually may be linked to a decreased risk of breast cancer and later in life. So I mean, these are huge, things that you can impact from a very early age. You may, by eating a healthy, non-saturated fat, but, healthy fat diet, you may be able to prevent breast cancer in your daughter. I mean, that's huge. I think there's so much that, there's all these toxins, unfortunately, in our environment, whether it's, soaps and shampoos and makeup and things like that. Estrogens or parabens you can look for in the products. I think those actually can lead to hormonal shifts and even early puberty. There's hormones in our, dairy and meat that's conventionally raised. I mean, there's just stuff's everywhere, and it's affecting our kids. Like, our kids are getting puberty earlier than they were just 10 years ago. And that's just, I think, a product of our environment. So whatever you can do to stop for puberty issues. There's lots of things that have been linked to PMS type symptoms, and whether it's in your teenager or yourself, vitamin D definitely can help reduce PMS. Limiting the salt and caffeine in your diet can help with like breast tenderness, things like that. It can help with moodiness and bloating, and then the acne that goes along with PMS. Diets rich in zinc and vitamin A and E and those omega-3 fatty acids, all those things in like salmon and those fatty fishes, antioxidants, all those things can help basically with the PMS symptoms and specifically the acne. Oh, and I did want to make a note. You talked about zinc in oysters, but there's a lot of zinc in pumpkin seeds and in cashews. Oh, yeah. So other ways you can get enough zinc in your diet, whether it's for your immune system or for PMS.
One of the great things I think about finding root cause is that, I mean, there really is like a foundation of health, right? So how cool that zinc helps the immune system. It, improves our hormone levels. Like our bodies are made to have a certain like base level of health. So what we do to help one symptom can actually help others. It's kind of like flipped on its head where like, if you take a skin issue, traditional medicine goes, oh, like steroid cream, no matter what the skin issue is. And we're going to go, oh, like, let's find root cause. And maybe there's different answers, but all those answers like are shared among other issues. So there's, like, it's not like there's one cure, but living your best, most healthy, clean life is definitely the leg up for most the things we're talking about.
Well, and like those things work, so you can see why in the short term it makes sense. And like I was thinking about the high histamine diet. That's what you go to the doctor. You'll probably get an antihistamine, right? Like a Benadryl or Claritin or something for allergies. These block histamines, and that's why they work. But if we can not, just put a Band-Aid on it and try to get to the root of why you're having too much histamine in your system or why you're over responding to histamine, then that's, I think, going to be a better way to go.
Is there a functional perspective on environmental allergies? Because those are a little different than food allergies, but like trees and dust and mold and pollen and all that stuff.
I think, unfortunately, it's pretty hard to control those. Obviously, mold being one of the ones you could control. I think a lot of my patients have mold in their house and, end up either moving or, spending the money to take care of that because it does kind of chronically activate the immune system in a way that we don't want. We were talking about earlier how our immune system is like so well designed, and it's great when it works acutely, but when it is chronically activated, that's when we start seeing autoimmune disease. Basically, that it's your kind of immune system's just chronically going and can't shut down, and then it starts attacking, the different organ systems in your body, and that's obviously bad, and where we see so much, autoimmune. So we don't want to be chronically triggering our immune system if possible. We want to, be exposed to an allergy or exposed to something, fight it off, take care of it, and then move on. But if you are being chronically exposed to things like mold, that can definitely, activate your immune system in a bad way. So I think mold being one of the ones that, we may have control over as far as the environmental allergens. Unfortunately, we can't really control those a lot of times. But again, just kind of, boosting your immune system to fight it off.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. So then can environmental allergies trigger or speed up someone getting an autoimmune disease? Did I hear that correctly?
No, actually, I didn't mean to make that connection. I think it's more of like the molds and toxins and, things like that. Yeah, I haven't seen seasonal allergies. They're more just of an annoyance for most people.
Okay.
Just having like the chronic nasal symptoms or allergy symptoms. So yeah, I haven't seen that. It's actually a different type of immune reaction. There's a couple different arms of our immune system, like without going into too much detail, there's Th1 and Th2, and there's these, you may have heard of the hygiene hypothesis of, everything's so clean now that our immune system has shifted over to the, more of the allergy side of the immune system. So yeah, that's not linked to autoimmune disease, but kind of this argument that we shouldn't have such a clean, sterile environment so our body can, use both arms of our immune system.
Oh, that's super interesting. We do see an increase in autoimmune diseases, I think, across all ages. You mentioned you had like an impending one. My husband had Crohn's, just got cleared of it actually last fall, which is amazing. And one of the questions that came in was about Crohn's disease in kids. Like, is a GAPS diet safe for kids? Just how to kind of care for it. And I hope we can expand that to any autoimmune disease that's happening in a family. Are there certain just things to look for and things to do from a functional perspective?
There is a sort of a general autoimmune, there's, a couple different protocols. People may have heard of the Walls protocol. Dr. Walls is a pretty famous doctor now that got MS and was able to pretty successfully reverse that. She has a very...
Yeah, she was in a wheelchair for 4 years.
Yeah, and she has a pretty detailed book that goes into all that. So there's like sort of what people call the AIP, or the autoimmune protocol, and that's like a generalized autoimmune diet that tends to be good for most people. And there's certain things that, again, are healthy foods for some people, but for people with autoimmune, maybe they're a trigger. And there's also, something similar for thyroid. So there's certain foods that are healthy, in the autoimmune, there's, nightshades, so things like tomatoes and things like that may be healthy for some people, but for people with autoimmune, they may be a trigger. So there are specific diets that you can look into that are for general anti-inflammatory. I would think for, GAPS is pretty restrictive, so I think I'd be cautious with that in kids. The autoimmune is a little bit, it's restrictive, but not in a way that would be, nutrient deficient or anything like that. So
sure, the GAPS intro is very intense. Yep. Yeah, I kind of feel like GAPS is like the grandfather. Like it was like the best we knew 10, 15 years ago. And now it's like, you don't just, everybody shouldn't just give up everything. You do the AIP here, you do the SCD. Like you need to figure out which one makes you feel better, right? So it all does really come back to that elimination diet, but which elimination diet, and your body can know, which is so hard. You mentioned there's another one for thyroid, and we're seeing like thyroid madness, I feel like, in the adult population, especially women. This is trickling down to kids, and Megan wanted to know if you suspect like a thyroid-related problem in your kids, what's a good resource to go to try to sort that out?
Yeah, so again, I think a functional medicine doctor is or provider is going to look a little bit differently. Like, if you go to your pediatrician, SH and a free T4, and that's just what we're trained to do. When I do a thyroid, I do like 6 or 7 different, tests for the thyroid, looking at the free T3, the total T3, the total T4, all different things, because they're, it's just one point in time and there's a lot of different things interacting. I also started through my functional medicine training, started checking zinc, and about half my thyroid patients are deficient in zinc. And again, from a functional standpoint, the levels are different than what the lab would tell you is normal. So replacing that zinc does seem to help. So, I mean, I think going to someone that has a little bit of different of approach, I think would, because if you go to your doctor and they check a TSH, someone will just check a TSH and it'll be in the normal range and they'll say you're fine. So sometimes you have to dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah, that functional blood work testing it's fascinating. It's a little scary because I used to be like so healthy, like an A student. Now I'm a C plus. I'm like, oh, but
you're preventing problems in the future, so you'd rather be a C on your way to an A, right?
Exactly. It'll make me feel better because the A was just
10 years from now, 10 years from now you fail. That's bad. Yeah,
for sure. I'm like skimming through because we have like time for one more question, and I feel so badly about the people who we don't get to. Although I do think that a lot of the ones we didn't get to are sort of encapsulated in the other stuff. But let's talk about asthma. Because again, I think this is something that is blowing up in kids, and it relates a little bit to that two arms of the immune system, right? The hygiene hypothesis has to do with like we're having breathing issues and asthma in kids, maybe because of, we've changed something in our environment. Like asthma is definitely increasing. So let me see. This particular family, Debbie has already followed a really clean diet. They don't drink milk. Loves homeopathy, but is really wondering, like she's got a 6-year-old with asthma and they're having to do conventional treatment. Like you said, there's a time and place for albuterol and stuff like that. But do you know of any other supportive functional medicine or homeopathic remedies?
I think magnesium is big and even in traditional medicine, if a kid's really sick in the hospital, they get IV magnesium. So it's pretty well established that magnesium is related to asthma and calming down that inflammation. So I would just maybe get magnesium levels checked and make sure that you're getting adequate magnesium in the diet, because that might be something an easy fix.
It is easy. Do you have a favorite delivery? Because I know there's lotions, there's powders, there's capsules. Like, is there a best way for absorption?
Not necessarily. I think whatever you can get your kids to take. Obviously, there's different. There's mag citrate, there's mag oxide, there's different ones, and some are better absorbed than others. I don't know off the top of my head which ones, but a lot of people use the Calm, the powder at night. It also helps with sleep. But it's the way that it works in asthma, it's a muscle relaxant, and that's probably why it helps with sleep too. It helps relax those muscles that are basically lining the airway, and that when in asthma, those muscles get really tight, and that's when things get constricted and you can't breathe. So the magnesium tends to reduce those little muscles that are lining the airway. So I think there's a lot of different ways you can get magnesium in, just as long as you get it in.
Good, yeah, and an Epsom salt bath too is another topical way that's really, really chill for kids. Literally, didn't mean to make that pun, but I did. I can say in our own family, exactly, yeah, in our own family, one of my kids, I didn't even know it until we were talking with a practitioner, and she said, "Yeah, like it takes me forever to fall asleep at night." And I was like, "You never even like complained about that." And the practitioner said, "Right, we need to get you on some magnesium," and it completely helped. And then we got off of our routine this summer. All of a sudden, trouble falling asleep again. I said, "Okay, we got it. We have that magnesium powder, the Calm stuff. We got to get back in the habit, because when it's beautiful to see something making a difference." And I know, and that's the tricky part about health, natural health, taking charge of your own health, is sometimes you try things and you're like, I don't know if that really worked. Like, I think I'm still just as tired, or, and so, and again, that's where testing comes in. It's kind of nice to have something that's, objective. Yeah,
definitely.
Some numbers. Yeah. Anything you want to say for...
I was just going to say, it's nice to see that you're making improvements, right? Because like you said, some of these symptoms are pretty subjective, so you can look at something objective that's getting better, and it's kind of motivating.
Absolutely. Any kind of final words or a last goodbye for us in our last minute here, Dr. Lauren?
No, thanks for having me, and I congratulate your listeners for taking charge of their health, and I'm just really excited that there's venues like this where people can get good information. So
yeah, well, thank you
for what you do.
Yeah, thank you for the time. And for listeners out there or people who are watching the replay, we will do a couple things with this video. We will get it on YouTube if it's harder to watch on Facebook. And then we'll also probably like break it up into like smaller, more manageable chunks on topic and put those, integrate those into some posts with, you know, appropriate links and skim notes, because we at Kitchen Stewardship know that everybody's busy and we don't always have time to watch the whole video. So we like to take little kind of cliff notes to help you out. So we appreciate your time so much, Dr. Lauren, and I love what SteadyMD is doing and just love what you're doing too with functional medicine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye, everybody.